Hey guys, it's Kim Howerton here for the Tuesday Night Live with me, and I am glad to be joining you from Berkeley, California. And I'm going to have to jump up, jump up in about 15 minutes because I put something in the oven at the wrong time. And that's the way life goes when you do recipes and lives on the same day. But I think we'll adjust given that it is approximately 12 feet to the oven from where I'm currently sitting, and I should be able to go there and back real fast. So hopefully no one will get irritated with me as I do that. So thanks for joining me for this weekly live. Let's talk about some things there are to talk about. I'd love to hear questions that you have, things that have come up this week. I can share that just to get things started before someone asks a question. One of my clients came to me this week and said that her trainer had told her, I'm going to change some of the facts so that I don't think you'd know who she was, but in case she didn't want to share, but I will basically share the story, which is her trainer told her to eat a lot more protein than she was currently eating. And I had raised her protein much more than she'd been eating before. And so this just brings up the protein question. So there are some evidence-based realities around protein. So what is the good evidence around protein? Well, they come a lot from studies by people like Don Layman or Stu Phillips, and look at that there is confirmation, there is 100,000% absolutely a minimum protein threshold. Though there is some variety in terms of where that threshold might be for different people because we are all fairly unique, but not that different, right? It's a range, it's not like a huge field. And there is a point at which additional protein becomes questionable above the top end of the range if that's beneficial for people. And there is absolutely um a top end of the range of benefit physically, but then the question is mentally. So what do I mean by that? um I mean that there he goes, I keep getting distracted by I'm reading ahead, I should stop that. um so the range for appropriate amounts of protein, I'll just cut to the chase. For most people above 40, because you need more when you're older, fall between 1.2 and 1.8 grams per kilogram. So you have to divide that number by 2.2 to get it into pounds. So between 1.2 and 1.8 grams per kilogram. That range of reference body weight. So if you were not overweight, that would be your total body weight. If you were non-obese or overweight within a reasonable weight range. Um, if you're overweight, you pick your reference body weight, so like a goal weight kind of thing. But I will say your goal, it's a little lower than goal weight. It's very hard to say. It would be what you would weigh if you were lean. And not all of us want to be lean, and that is okay. But if you're trying to calculate these numbers. So that means there is that range. Now, some people though, including myself, often eat a little bit more than that. I eat more like 2.2 grams per kilogram, which is 1 gram per pound of reference body weight. Um, because above that range, there does seem to be potentially some additional benefit um, mentally, hunger suppression, enjoyment, stuff like that, right? So that 1.4 to 1.8, that's where most people of most fitness levels, including people who lift weights, will get the most benefit. And then if you go above that, you're sort of inching out additional benefit, but the line is, whereas the line was like this, it's now starting to really flatten out and any benefits are very small. Although again, there are some mental benefits for people who enjoy eating more protein. They find that when people push the protein a little higher, they will often experience greater satiety. They will often experience a feeling of fullness that I just said the same twice. They might see better mood. And so are some reasons to keep going. They've tested people all the way up to about 3 grams per kilogram of reference body weight, and it's been perfectly healthy. So as long as you don't have a rare genetic issue going up all about that high, it's perfectly healthy, which is kind of like around 1.4 grams per pound or so. However, do you have to go that high? The answer is no. So, just to answer the question, one of the problems is if you keep raising your protein, but you're trying to lose body fat, you have to account for that additional protein. So, if you have continuously high protein, it just leaves less room for fat. And so you could just start to feel hungrier because there is a certain amount of hunger we get if we don't have enough protein, but there's also, I think, a certain amount of hunger if we don't have enough fat or for somebody on a mixed diet, fat and carbs. Or I call those energy calories versus protein calories. So one of the main risks to pushing the protein too terribly high is just that you don't have as much room for other things. And so that's something that we all have to take into account when we're deciding more protein, less protein. But the one thing I think not all people, there are people in the keto community that don't agree with me on this. I'm going to say they're wrong. Um, but pretty much all sports physiologists and protein experts would say uh, that 1.2 is certainly as low as they would want to see anyone go. And that's per pound, sorry, that's per kilogram of reference weight. So if you're going by lean body mass, it's higher because lean body mass is less than. So it depends what you're counting it on. But there are some people that would say 1 gram per kilogram of lean mass is what you should do. And I would just come out 100% against that and say that is insufficient protein for most people. And so I don't even, 1.2 is even a little low by my book. I think 1.4 is starting to get in a better range. And I know that Finney and Volek are around 1.5. And so I really think they've got some good information, especially for people with metabolic disease. So definitely, I'm gonna come out on the side. I don't even say it's high protein, I would say it's sufficient protein, and anything below that I think is insufficient protein. So that's where I stand. So I think we need enough protein, and then when we get into the higher amounts of protein, it starts to be debatable. If you love protein more than anything else and you wanna eat more protein and eat less fat, totally fine. But again, some people feel better when they get the right balance. So that's my thought. Hey, Melinda, good to hear from you. I'm sorry you're having that problem. Uh, I will message you about what to do about it because I am not in charge of that. But I can give you some leads. So I will message you or message me too so that it's waiting for me when I got off this call and I will respond to it. Um, Terry, oh, thanks for the super chat, Terry. She said, thanks to you and your no nonsense approach. My doctor said my cholesterol is improved, BMI is 29. Fasting blood sugar is 80, A1C is 5. I appreciate you too, Terry. You're a super fan for sure and a super inspiring story. So I'm super glad to say super as many times as I can about you. Katrina says ketovore for 6 years, suddenly 15-pound weight gain in 2 months. Don't know why, no diet changes on bioidentical hormones, any ideas? So 15 pounds in 2 months, that would be distressing. I would get your hormone levels checked and a full thyroid panel checked. If you're really sure that you've been eating the same amount that whole time and the same kinds of things, but then I would start to track what you're eating because sometimes I don't know, it's a slippery slope. If I'm not tracking, if not I'm not paying attention, I can eat more than I think I am for sure. So but I would definitely go back to your doctor, explain what's happened and get a full panel of things checked because if your thyroid has gone completely off the rails, it's a possible implication there. So check the thyroid, check the hormones again, and then see if something needs adjusting. It could very well be that something has happened causing your cortisol to go up in a way that is causing more water retention. And so, I don't know that all of the 15 pounds are just water weight, but there might be something going on there as well. So definitely, that rapid fat gain rather, or fat loss, but that rapid fat gain, I would say, sorry, that rapid weight gain, go to the doctor, check in on the doctor. Maria says going 7 pounds in 1 month on carnivore. I did you say gaining 7 pounds in 1 month? It's just I'm sure it's a typo. So again, yeah, these kinds of rapid weight gains, we really need to check in on what's going on there. So if you're gaining weight that rapidly and you're not underweight, I would definitely want to check out that nothing is happening medically. If you can check in that your eating is not super out of control. Now, can you gain 7 pounds in a month on carnivore? Potentially, some of that might be water weight. So when I went from low protein, back to the protein question, when I went from low protein, I was eating an 85% fat diet when I first went keto, which for me also meant a low protein diet. So I was eating around 1 gram of protein per kilogram of lean body mass. So that's what I warn people against. So you can imagine what my thoughts are about that. But I later raised my protein and I raised it fairly rapidly after that and gained 5 pounds. That took about a month and a half to come off. But that was all water weight fluctuation. My body was really dealing with a much higher protein intake than I'd been having before, and it took a while for me to shake off the initial water weight gain. I do not believe it was body fat gain because I wasn't really that much bigger. And so sometimes there can be with diet changes, big water weight fluctuations, but you probably want to start tracking your macros, how much fat and how much protein, just so you can see what's going into your body to see if what's happening is making sense. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, Maria, I see you there. Lost 71, ketovore eating in a year, OMAD. So when you went carnivore from OMAD, what were the diet like what was the changes? Did you start eating more often? Did you start eating more overall? Because I see you went a year doing OMAD. So a year of OMAD can sometimes set people up for a little bit of failure in terms of possible weight regain because there's a chronic under eating that happens for most people. You can't get enough protein in a single meal usually for the whole day, and you're probably not going to be eating significantly more than 1,000 calories a day, which is pretty low calorie. And some people can pack it in OMAD, but most people can't. And so your body gets used to chronically under eating in terms of the a normal amount that an adult might eat. And then you go to eating a little more often, a little more food, and there's a spring back. Your body is sort of set up for a regain and a fairly rapid regain. So you're trying to get your metabolic hormones back online because uh, if you're okay, you're still OMAD. So then I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I would track and see if you can see anything that changed there. Oh, Terry says, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Thank you, Terry. I'm a horrible self promoter. Hit the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the follow, all the things. It's very helpful for me as someone running a channel. I'm on both Facebook for some of you and YouTube for others of you. And wherever you are, hit something that tells them I'm doing a good job. All right. Juju Bunny says, when I ate all the meat, lots of ground beef, I could not get the feeling of satiety. I developed bumps on my skin. High protein does not work for me. Yeah, you got to find what works for you. I was actually listening to Kelly Hogan today. Kelly Hogan is the sweetest thing. And she is a long term carnivore. And she was talking about, high protein versus high fat. And, one of the things she was saying was even high fat needs to be sufficient protein. And my friend Amber Hearn says the same thing. So people who support high fat will also support high protein as well, or not high protein, but sufficient protein. And then you have to experiment to know what works for you. Like a general rule of thumb, I can say is on average, more metabolically healthy people seem to do better on a little bit more fat than protein, and metabolically healthy people who are still a little bit bigger than they want to be, those people tend to do a little bit better on more protein than fat. Um, and there are always exceptions to those rules, but that's just the averages. My ever present sippy cup. I'm good with that. And I think my timer, yes, it's going to go off soon. Sorry, I am multitasking alive. Indeed, I am. Yes, I am. I am making, I was making one of my little loaf breads, focaccia things to try and do a video. And I did something wrong on the first batch. And I put the second batch in the oven. And then suddenly I was like, I have my live to do in like 5 minutes. So yeah, that's how it goes around here. And no one else is home to take it out. So that's the way it goes. Um, so what are your guys' goals over the next few months? We're starting to come into spring soon. It's already March. So as we come into spring, who's doing what? What's people's plans? I hope people have good things going. I'm going to be in Austin in April during KetoCon. I'm going to be, is that April? That is April. Yeah. I'm going to be on the low carb cruise. Apparently, there are still tickets if you want to go cruising in early June. I think we leave the 3rd or 4th out of Houston, and Dr. Barry, Nisha Berry, um, Nurse Cindy, I think the Siteses, so many good people. I can't even begin to remember everybody are going to be on the cruise. It's supposed to be like one of the biggest cruises ever in terms of the low carb group going. So it's going to be super fun. So that's in June. Then in July, I'm speaking in Baltimore. I think I'm taking August off. I mean, no, I'll be working. I just am not going anywhere. And then in October, I'm going to see Autumn Keto, which is, I think, I'm just drew, my brain just exploded. It's near Indianapolis. Is it Kansas City? Oh gosh, my brain just broke about where I'm going. Now I'm embarrassed. I will look that up. It's a city that I've always wanted to go to, but now I can't remember what city it is. Um, let's see, Autumn. Oh, if I go to Facebook and I look up Autumn, I could probably find it. Well, that's not helpful. There she is. Louisville. That's where it is. I always wanted to go to Louisville, so that's going to be exciting. But my brain was broken for a minute, so I forgot. Oh, Katrina, you're going on the cruise. That's going to be super fun. I keep saying super today. It's all about super. Super duper. All right. I'm taking a 20-second break while I go take something out of the oven. Talk amongst yourselves. Come up with some questions. I'm still here with you in my ear as I wander over to the oven so that I can remove the bread. Is the bread done? Oy. The bread is basically done. This is the debate Kim is having right now. I think the bread is done. Okay, the bread is coming out of the oven. Now I'm making my way back to, here we are. All right. And I realized as I looked at the bread, I forgot an ingredient again. Some days you can't win for losing, people. You just can't. Can't at all. It's not my day. Some days you just got to pack it in. You got to say, this was not apparently the day to make a cooking video about this bread. I had big plans. I did the bread. I finished some edits on something. There was a lot going on. And then I got sucked into the Murdaugh case thing. Like, I hadn't been paying any, you guys know what I mean? The murder case. There was the Murdaugh murder case thing. I hadn't paid any attention to it until just somebody had, the case closed, the trial. And then I was like, what is that about? Got sucked into looking up. That was not helpful to my efficiency today because one of the interesting things, I'm not from a little town. It is Berkeley is in fact a little town, but we don't act like it's a little town. We don't all know each other. We don't talk about each other. There's not gossip about your neighbor for the most part. We pretty much live and let live your life, have your friends, whatever. We don't do, like, I hear things about small town and like how everybody knows everybody's business. Nobody knows anybody's business here. But I apparently get sucked into small town things on the internet. So I pay attention to that. Melinda says, I have a bunch of questions until you're live. Hey, Nona Grace. And then I forget. Write them down. Selena, hey Selena, 2 pounds away from my goal weight. Goal is to be there by the end of March. I was on track to get there in the fall, but my thyroid needed to be adjusted. Then December, I decided I required surgery. Yikes. Well, I'm glad we're all on the journey. There's no such thing as an after until we're dead. So takes as long as it takes. 2 pounds. I know it's nice to have the number done in your head, but pretty much probably look fabulous. And 2 pounds is a very minor thing to get done in a month. So good job. And sorry that you had to have surgery. I'm glad that you're recovering and on track. That's awesome. So I forgot to put the allulose in this batch of bread. So it still comes out okay, but it gets this weird texture. Like it's not smooth and glossy on the top. It's sort of crusty. And I don't like that. I'm very particular about how I like things. So now I'm contemplating what to do about that situation. Using up all my eggs. Anyway. All right. What else is happening? Cambodian New Year is in April, Karen. Okay, we'll be traveling with the students to their home villages. Could be a little tricky food wise. Yeah, I remember you have that struggle sometimes with being in Cambodia, and especially when your students are involved. And I get it. You don't want to offend anybody. You want to eat what if you're going to somebody's home, I understand that can be challenging. Selena says keto bread pudding, potentially. Although keto bread, in my opinion, doesn't absorb the way that regular bread does. So a lot of times the bread pudding is a little disappointing. So we'll see how this comes out. This was going to be the keto focaccia I made very easily. Like it was the easiest recipe in the world. And as soon as I tried to film something, I forget things. Oh, Terry, Nona Grace made your chicken pizza. That sounds yummy. I love the chicken pizza. I don't know if Terry makes a version similar to my version, but I enjoy the fact that I don't have to pre-cook anything and I just throw it in there. So that's nice. I've been taking my vitamins. I got some little pill cases. This one has a sticker on it. They're kind of cool, I think. They look pretty sleek. I just got little pill cases. Anyway, so little pill cases. So I have a daytime and a nighttime. They don't say daytime and nighttime, but this one's black and this one's gold. So these are on Amazon. Got those. I like them because the little dividers fill up the whole space. I've had ones before where it doesn't quite fill it up and then you close it and then you travel with it and then the pills get all mixed up and you're like, well, that's not helpful. So cute little pill cases. I thought little 7 compartments. You couldn't put giant pills in them though, I'll say. And a lot of vitamins are kind of giant. Selena says, when tracking calories for weight loss, how long do you recommend before going back to maintenance calories? Great question. So I think that 10% of your body weight is probably an appropriate target for any cut, right? So a period of time when you're trying to see the scale go down, I would call it cut. And so let's say you're 200 pounds, 10% of your body weight is 20 pounds. And I would say an appropriate rate of loss is between 0.5% and 1% a week. So if you're losing 0.5% of your weight a week, that is approximately a pound a week, right? 20 pounds. 20 pounds is 10%. So if I divide that into 10 weeks, that's up 2 pounds a week, which is 1%. Right? Hopefully this makes sense. So I'll speak from the top. You weigh 200 pounds. You want to lose 10% of your weight, which is 20 pounds. And you want to do that at a rate of somewhere between 0.5% and 1% a week, which means at the slowest, that's around 20 weeks. And at the fastest, that's around 10 weeks. And so somewhere in that range, that's an appropriate time, I think, to do a cut for. And then from there, I do a maintenance period of at least 6 weeks, but I really would recommend you do it as long as your cut was. Going to maintenance, giving your body a break, giving your body time to regenerate the kinds of hormones that you're needing on for your next leg of your journey. So even if you want to lose more than that 20 pounds, I would say cut it, go to maintenance for a little while, and then come back and hit that cut again, um, and do it in rounds. So that's how I do things. I think it's very sane. It keeps you in a better frame of mind. It restores your leptin, your ghrelin, your thyroid hormone. It restores your metabolic rate, which starts to get very depressed when you chronically cut. So if you're cutting for years and years and years, you need to give your body a break and go to maintenance, or it's going to run down. So you need some time in a maintenance phase, I think, for sanity as well and for improving your hormonal response. Now, if you were 400 pounds, 500 pounds, um, you probably have more runway to do a continuous cut for a longer period of time. But eventually, I think a break is something that you should do. And so, really, the way I like to see people do this is a cut for about 10%, go to maintenance, cut for 10%, go to maintenance, do that kind of thing. Um, Nona Grace, I am not a big fan of the sardine fast. I think you can have, yeah, not a big fan is how I'll say it. One, I mean, just from a personal perspective, any like little fish make me want to vomit. So that's a problem. I couldn't do it. I literally couldn't. I just can't do it. Um, I've had a lifelong aversion to fishy fish. Like just it started in childhood. It has not improved. And so that's a problem for me, but that doesn't mean it's a good or bad idea for other people. Like I'm not like no one should eat sardines because I don't like them. But what is a sardine fast? Well, a sardine fast, as I understand it, is it's essentially like a 3-day water only fast, but anytime you're hungry, you're allowed to eat sardines or mackerel canned in oil, including eating the oil. So that's, people then hear that and then make their own diet up and interpret things about it. So I can't know about what somebody's version of it, and there might be a version of it that's okay. I think sardines are a very healthy food. I think eating sardines is fabulous. I think if you want to include sardines in your diet, that's great. I do think that the sardine approach definitely has helped people raise their ketones because, as far as I understand it, you're getting about a 1-to-1 fat to well, actually, you're getting a little more fat than protein if you drink the oil that's in the can. If you only eat the sardines in the can and you don't actually drink the oil with it, you're getting probably 1-to-1 ish or a little more protein than fat. And I think the idea is you're supposed to drink the oil as well in the can. Um, from what I understand, you'll maybe be eating because you're allowed to eat as many as you want. But uh, a lot of people, they're not overeating sardines. I'll say that's really one of those things that they're not like. I'll have 4 cans. They just like the edge of the hunger comes off, and they eat it. So I mean, I'm not totally against it. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. Um, It's sorta like an egg fast in some ways, and it definitely does seem to get people into ketosis if they're struggling to get into ketosis because essentially they're eating very, very low calorie. You're gonna be eating potentially between 2 and 600 calories a day. You're getting a little bit of protein, but if you're eating, like, 1 can of sardines, I think that has, like, 10 to 15 grams of protein, if I'm remembering correctly. Might be a little more, but it's not enough protein to trigger muscle protein synthesis at the rate that I want to see. Anyway, I would rather people do a protein sparing modified fast probably if they feel the need to do some sort of 3-day challenge. I guess my main question is why do you want to do one? I should probably have started with that. Like I would ask myself, why do you want, why are you like, is this a good idea? Should I do this thing? Um, uh, because that will decide whether or not it's a good thing for you. So if you're like, hey, I'm really struggling to get into ketosis, I want to see some higher ketone numbers than I usually do, I would do a 3-day water fast, but I'm worried that that's going to be mentally really hard. So instead, I thought, well, I'll let myself have a can of sardines when I'm hungry. And that way I will It's certainly not a food you're going to overeat on. So you're very close to fasting, but you're not fasting. I mean, if that was the reason, okay. Um, but it's not my thing. It's somebody else's thing. And they probably would give you a very different answer about it. But it's definitely not my thing and definitely not something that I would ever do. Um, and the reasoning behind it, is definitely there's a bit of a sort of mental preparation for fasting, I certainly think, which is, like if you have an out, right? You're going to be doing this fasting thing, but you have this out where you can say, well, but I can have a this, which is the sardines, but it's a thing that like isn't going to make you tend to overeat. So I'm sure I'm losing viewers as I'm discussing this, but my personal take on it is I wouldn't do it because I hate sardines. Um, Beyond that, I've never been a big fan of things like egg fasts or um, anything like that. So, I mean, I'm not anti-fasting, but I think one of the questions we really have to ask ourselves is why do I want to do it? And I would say just because other people are doing it and it seems sort of like the popular thing right now, I would really look more deeply into what is the point? Why do I think I want to do it? What am I setting myself up for? And so I don't think anyone's going to do anyone any real harm trying something for 3 days. Not a problem, right? Water fasting, sardine fasting, anything, 3 days, not a big deal. So I don't think it's a bad thing in that way that I think it's really dangerous. But I think you have to pay attention to like, if I'm trying something, why am I trying it? What am I doing? And what's my long term goal? Where does this fit into my long term goal? And am I just following trends? So I would look at that. I do know from my friends at Keto Mojo that during a sardine fast, a lot of the participants did see much higher ketones than they normally do, which isn't all that shocking, in that they're eating such a low caloric amount that their body will go into ketosis. So, and they're not eating carbs. And certainly, if you're only allowed to eat one food, it's not a lot of sneaky carbs that are getting to you in a can of sardines. So, it can maybe be a mental break from some behaviors you were having. But ultimately, I worry. I'm a worrier. I worry about people kind of thinking that they have to develop food aversions. I'm worried about people thinking they have to starve themselves. Yeah, they just things about it worry me. So I don't think it's a terrible idea if you know why you're doing it and the reasons that you have are making sense. I certainly wouldn't do it for fat loss. I certainly wouldn't do it for, yeah, I mean, you have to, I am somebody who's like, I'm rambling now. I am somebody who's like, let's do things in a measured way. Let's understand our reasoning. Let's do something that's sustainable. Let's pull all those thoughts together. So that's kind of where I come from. Kristen says, do I recommend cardiovascular exercise and or weight training during a cut? I do. I recommend cardiovascular exercise just because cardiovascular exercise is good for your cardiovascular system. I don't recommend it to be doing it in an attempt to accelerate your weight loss for the most part. I think we're much better off focusing on movement, but stressing your cardiovascular system on the regular is beneficial for long-term health. So that's just like essentially you're saying like during a cut, do you think it's important to put on sunscreen when you go in the, I mean, I don't know what you think about sunscreen, right? But I'm like, cardiovascular exercise is just a good idea for your health. But if you're saying, do I think that's required to lose body fat? I do not. I do think probably getting your steps in, being more active in general, parking your car further away, taking a walk in the afternoon, those kinds of things pay off a lot better, in my opinion, because they don't really stress your body out. They don't stress your mind out. They don't make you hungrier. They're going to be more beneficial to long term weight loss, just activity in general. I do think it's worth weight training in a cut. Absolutely. Because there's a lot of evidence that when we weight train or resistance train, or even do things like yoga and Pilates, where people aren't thinking, oh, I'm doing weight training, but you're resisting against your own body weight. Like, not the kind of yoga where you lay on a blanket and take a nap, but like Ashtanga, like yoga styles where you're like holding a pose for a while. things that you use your muscles for, even just minimally, have been found to help us preserve more lean body mass, so more muscle mass when we're in a cut. So, one of the problems that happens in a cut is that when you're cutting or dieting of any kind, it doesn't have to be my version, any version, when you're losing body weight, you want to lose body fat and you don't want to lose muscle mass. You want to retain as much muscle mass as possible. You want to lose as much body fat as possible, reasonably. And so that's body composition. You want to lose, you want to retain or gain muscle. You want to you want to lose body fat. And if you resistance train, you are much more likely to retain your muscle mass. And that, again, that could look like hardcore lifting all the way to doing some yoga and Pilates to retain it. Now, if you want to build muscle, you're going to have to work a little harder and stay more on the higher end. But studies have shown us that even just lightweight training, things that even just stress your muscles slightly, like Pilates or yoga, can be beneficial to helping you retain your lean body mass. Why is this so important? Well, if we lose muscle mass as we lose body weight, and we lose some in a diet, but we want to retain as much as possible because the more muscle mass you lose, the lower your metabolic rate is going to go, and the more screwed over you're going to be when you end your cut or during your cut. So, muscle is our most metabolically active tissue. Is that right? I think the brain might be, but it's certainly a lot more metabolically active than our body fat. And so, by having the more muscle mass we have, the higher our metabolic rate is going to be, which means we want not to lose the muscle mass if we think eating is something we would enjoy doing in the future. So, so to answer your question, I do recommend weight training or some type of resistance training during a cut for sure. And if your cut is so extreme, like as an example, I know there are some diets out there on the internet where the restriction level is so extreme that you don't have the energy to do a cut. You don't have the energy to lift weights. You're so low energy because you're so low calorie. In that case, that would, in my mind, indicate that you've gone way too restrictive and you want to eat a little bit more than you're eating in your current cut level. So, so that's your answer from me on that topic. Hopefully that answered your question. Um, all right. What else we got? That was the end of that. I'm like, it's like, I like wound down like a little toy, answering that question. All right. What else do people want to ask me? Because we can wrap it up in the next five, or we can keep going. Whatever's going on. I went really light on the makeup today. I just put a little concealer on and looking at the image and thinking, did I? I didn't do my eyebrows. Anyway, it's rough staring at your own image on a live. I can see all your comments, but when the comments wind down, I'm like, what is that dot? Anyway, like a squirrel. I think a funny story, maybe only to me, is when I was very heavy, I was pretty convinced that I had a very small nose. Now, I don't think I have a giant nose, but I have a normal size nose, if not a slightly, you know, it's a normal size nose. It's red right now because I have allergies. Um, but I was convinced I had a really small nose, and then I lost weight and my face got smaller and then my nose got bigger because just the difference. Anyway, weird story. Anyone else have that kind of experience when you lost weight that some suddenly certain features look totally different? Anyway, um hey Roxana, it was also great meeting you in Denver. I hope that you are having a good time getting back into the swing of things getting home. Terry, rent a car or not for KetoCon? All right. So the airport is fairly far away from where KetoCon is. So that's a benefit if you are want, that. One thing, I don't know what the prices are like this year, but from previous years, Austin rental cars are so expensive. They're like twice what they are here in California. I couldn't figure out why they were so expensive, but it was like going to be like $500 for a week last time I was there, and here it's like 3. So I was like, why is it so expensive? And so they're a little, so check the prices. Um in terms of getting around town, there are tons of Ubers. So I sort of think, in my opinion, now there is a good parking lot attached to the convention center. If it's in the same place, is it in the same place or did they move it? Is it still at Palmer? If it's at Palmer, there's a garage right there. Um, Clearly, I have not looked into this. Uh, I don't think so. Essentially, okay, cut to the chase. If you like convenience, I think having a car is convenient because then you can go somewhere for barbecue, you can go do something, you can drive the car. That makes sense, right? You can also Uber. And I would probably say at the end of the day, Ubering wherever you wanted to go probably ends up costing you about the same as renting a car, because the car rental is so it was, unless the prices have come down, was so expensive. Um, so this usually in the years past, I have rented a car, and this year I'm not gonna. And I think because I think it's actually maybe a little more cost effective just to Uber everywhere, unless maybe you had a big group and you were chauffeuring everybody around. It's a bit of a toss up. Sorry, I couldn't give you a definite answer on that one, Terry. But it also kind of depends what other plans you have, like where you want to go. Downtown Austin is very walkable. It's gonna be a lot cooler than it was when they used to have it in August. So I would probably do an Uber situation. But if you're like, I like my freedom, there is a parking garage, and I think it was only like 10, 15 bucks a day to park there for the conference. So that was very convenient. Um, Juju Bunny says, yes, weight gain and loss really shows in my face. Terry says, when I was 238 pounds, my van seemed so small. Now at 162, I kind of want a smaller van. Yeah, yeah. Everything feels a little bit different in size. Airplane seats, very different in size. I mean, I'm still a tall person, so leg room is important to me, but I'm not as wide, so that's helpful. Brenda asks, "What is KetoCon?" Okay, so there is an event in Austin in April called KetoCon, short for Keto Convention, not con as in con artist. KetoCon, Keto Convention, and it was started, I think, about 5 years ago by a guy named Brian Williamson who used to run a site called Keto Evangelist. He has since stopped being sort of a, I don't think he stopped being keto, he's just stopped running company, but he sold KetoCon to Robin Switzer, who used to run the conference. So she was the person organizing the whole thing. She now organizes the she's now taken it over and is doing it. They had to skip, I think last year or the year before, they had to skip a year because of the COVID situation and shutdowns and all that. So this is the first year. Is this the first year back? I think this is the first year back. I think this is the first year back. And so it's a 3-day convention in Austin where there's lots of vendors, there are speakers, and it's about keto. I would say this one, keto. So every conference seems to have a little bit of a different thrust, a different audience. I would say KetoCon is more like the party. It's more like the social aspect. Um, it's not so much the like I was just at Denver, and Denver is very much the doctors. So lots of doctor. You have to be a doctor to speak. KetoCon, you don't have to be a doctor to speak. It's more like to the people. But I think what a lot of people get out of KetoCon is the social aspect. They're seeing friends, they're seeing people, they're getting to meet people. So it's kind of like it's a convention. It's people coming together. So that's what KetoCon is. So it's not like there are hotels in the neighborhood. Um, oh, this is the second year back, Pola. Okay. So second year back. I did not go last year. That's right. I didn't go last year. Second year back, it's at the Palmer, and she agrees that Uber is the best way to get around town. Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So, yeah, I'm not going to speak. I'm just going to say hang out with the Berries and do some projects with them, and we are going to have Dr. Berry is going to be speaking. Nisha and I are going to hang out, play with kids, do things. Anyway, so I hope that people can come if they're going to be nearby there, and everybody gets to meet everybody and socialize, and it's a good time to see other people. Selena says weight loss stole my boobs. I'm waiting for a little boob stealage, Selena. I could use a little less. I will give you some of mine if that's possible, because I don't know why they stayed. They were it's irritating. They're, we're never happy. We are never. If it took all my boobs, I'd be very upset, but it could take a little bit. That'd be nice. Anywho, um, what else is going on? And then the other nice thing about going to Austin is they have really good barbecue. Well, a Big B is pretty good, Selena. I'm gonna say that's a pretty decent thing, because I'm gonna talk about boobs now, everyone, just because that's who I am. Because you can wear like a double D, it's just really hard to wear clothes. But then you go to like a B, like all tops will fit you. You don't have the like, I can't button it on the chest thing. And so I like a big B, I think a big B, small C, that's kind of perfection, I think. But that's just my opinion. I have not been a C since I was 11 years old. So that's not going to happen. Um that's a weird way to end the call. Anyway, Paula, hanging in there, hoping to see. Oh yeah, I hope you can make it too. I hope you can make it too. Oh, when is KetoCon? The Brenda, I thought you said what is KetoCon? I can't read. It is April 21st, I think. It's late April. I believe it's April 21st. I think it's ketocon.org, or if you just Google KetoCon Austin, it should pop up with the dates, but I think it's April 21st this. That it's that weekend. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I believe. And I think that would be, let me see. I have a calendar right here. Yeah, I think it's the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Yeah, Selena, that'd be super fun if you can come. It'd be nice to meet you. All right, guys, we're going to call it a night. I think we got what we needed to say said, and I will see you next week. All right, bye, guys.